Language acquisition is an essential aspect of education at all levels and across all subjects, but how do humans acquire language? This has been one of the most widely studied topics across various fields. Think about how you learned language, how to speak, what it meant, and how it developed inside of you. Your parents probably weren't giving you grammar lessons in your crib, were they?
No.
We didn't think so.
One of the first popular theories of language acquisition was under the behaviorist school of thought. B.F. Skinner was a popular guy in this school of thought, and he wrote a book called Verbal Behavior. Behaviorist thought held that learning occurred through the process of stimulus and response. In language acquisition, this means that early attempts to form words are positively or negatively reinforced, and this then molds the future attempts and progress in language acquisition.
Okay, now you're just confusing me.
Okay, the simple version. When a baby babbles and a nearby parent hears and responds in a good way, such as picking the baby up or talking to it, then the baby will continue to make that noise to receive the same positive reinforcement. And the same goes for negative or bad reinforcement from a parent after babbling. This eventually then would form a child's language. Behaviorists also thought that language was formed by imitation. The children would just imitate what adults around them were saying.
But wait, just when they thought they finally understood what it all meant, along came Chomsky.
Oh, Chomsky.
Chomsky thought that language was way too complex to be explained simply. He made a very persuasive argument that changed the way everybody thought about it. So, the new popular view became the cognitive view of learning. In a nutshell, the cognitive view is that humans are born with this natural cognitive ability, and when they learn, they're just responding to their environment. In the last 30 years, many more fields have become interested in just how children learn language. There have been lots of researchers from different standpoints studying research about the topic. We're talking anthropologists, educators, psychologists, sociologists, and linguists, all looking into how kids learn language. Pretty cool, huh? They seem to all focus on three main things: the environment influence, the child, and the language. Let's start with the child. Researchers found that although there's a strong relationship between them, cognition and language develop separately. Rice found that in the beginning, kids use concepts to learn language and then later switch, using the language to understand the concepts. In the first year of life, babies are able to babble because they've developed physical ability to speak. Syllables start to be produced about 7 to 8 months of age, usually a consonant vowel structure like da or ba. Isn't this amazing? Researchers found that this whole process and the first sounds produced are all the same with all children. At about 1 year old, actually words are produced, but basically no more than one word at a time. These individual words, although they seem simple, actually represent bigger ideas. For instance, book could mean read me this book. At about 18 months, they combine a noun and a verb. This is because they are getting the syntax of language. Now they might say, read book. Amazing. Researchers show that kids even understand the differences in meaning when words are ordered differently. So they figure out how to express what they're thinking in full sentences. So the basic run-through is formation of speaking muscles, babble, consonant and vowel combinations, nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, prepositions, articles, and conjunctions.
Whew, I'm exhausted just thinking about it.
Oftentimes this is called telegraphic language, probably because you send a telegram. Like, you only include the most important parts.
That makes sense. Between the ages of 2 and 3, kids learn language so fast that researchers can't seem to keep up enough to understand and explain it.
Researchers also found same progressions happen for children learning all languages, even sign language. So even though it's still widely debated, it seems that humans all have this cool innate ability to learn language. So now that we've learned all this about the child, let's learn about how the environment influences learning language. This is mostly looked at by researchers in the fields of psychology, anthropology, and education. They found that the meaning of language really depends on the social setting it takes place in. This is just one more thing that children have to learn: how to use language correctly in different contexts and different social settings. They have to understand the context they're in order to understand the meaning. So even a simple word like please asked differently in different settings can mean two totally different things. Himes called this idea communicative competence. It means that the kids know, depending on where they are and who they're talking to, what is normal and accepted for that situation or group.
And, as if that isn't enough, when kids get to school, they learn a whole new social set of language norms. Sounds confusing.
Researchers also studied how adults speak to children. You ever hear a mom use a tone with a child that she'd never use with another adult? She might say something like, time to say bye-bye. They call this motherese. But the crazy thing is, kids still somehow learn to talk like adults. So if we know all of this, how do we help kids learn language? Wells tells us in a study he found that correcting kids when saying the wrong thing actually doesn't help. He does the opposite. The best thing you can do is encourage your kids to talk and treat them with what they have to say as important. Try to understand the meaning before you respond, and when you respond, make your response at or above their level so they'll be able to understand it.
While the environment, of course, plays an important role in the development of language, the language itself has also been intensely studied. Understanding what is being acquired during language acquisition is vital to understanding how to help children succeed.
Chomsky's theory of generative grammar sought to explain how a relatively small set of rules can be applied to an entire language and allow a child to eventually produce the incredibly huge variety of words or sentences in a language. Chomsky theorized that there are both deep and surface structures in language. The deep structures are the basic ideas and concepts of language. The surface structures are the ways those concepts can be expressed.
So, a child only has to learn the deep structures and a few rules for manipulating them in order to be able to talk 1,000,000 words a minute all the way to soccer practice. Isn't that way easier than having to learn every possible sentence in the English language individually? This is why Chomsky was confident that his theory was valid.
So instead of focusing all the rules there might be for changing a deep structure into a surface structure, Chomsky and co. believed that children only had to learn which transformations were not possible. Another shortcut. This led Chomsky to develop his theory of universal grammar.
Chomsky believed that instead of merely having the ability to learn language from scratch, humans are born with the basic structure of language already present in our brains. Fascinating, isn't it? Universal grammar means that we only have to learn the specific rules of the language we are exposed to, instead of having to learn everything about how language works and then the specifics. We humans are pretty tricky, huh?
You know, imagine being an excellent classical guitarist. You can read music, play different notes. Now you have to learn how to play an electric bass guitar. Easy, right? Your knowledge of music and the finger positions necessary to play one will make it easier to play the other, putting you ages ahead of someone who had never touched a musical instrument before.
Adults rarely correct a child's verbal grammar, and often model incorrect grammar themselves, either by speaking motherese, like I mentioned earlier, or just by flat out using incorrect grammar. And I thought adults were supposed to have it all figured out.
The fact that children still learn language quickly without feedback required to learn other concepts is strong evidence of Chomsky's theories.
Further evidence for Chomsky's universal grammar theory can be found in the types of language errors that children make, or more specifically, the kind of errors they don't make. If children were merely stumbling their way through language acquisition, testing out hypotheses and adjusting them based on the responses of those around them, we would expect to see errors of every possible type and combination.
However, Chomsky observed that there are some types of errors that children never make in speech, indicating that some basics in language are indeed hardwired into our brains. Amazing! This further was proved by Strumwald's research.
Aren't we lucky? Us humans are born with brains that are not only predisposed to learning language, but come prepared with the basic laws of language to allow us to quickly and effortlessly learn to speak the language we are surrounded by at birth.
Chomsky has contributed perhaps the most to this field with his theories of generative and universal grammar and his framework of deep and surface structures. While research continues to advance, the evidence thus far supports Chomsky's theories and indicates that we are born with the basics of language already hardwired into our brains. And that is how humans acquire language.